Director Johansson, it's all yours. We'll start where we left off, and you and your staff can continue.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, again, Stephen Johansson with the Department of Health. I think with this afternoon session, the pace will be a little bit more rapid. We had a lot of items to discuss, especially in healthcare financing in the morning session. So I think we can save you a little bit of time here. Starting with the Behavioral Health Division, I'll let our CFO kind of kick us off here.
So we left off on page 227. This is the first unit in our Behavioral Health Division. It's Unit 2501, Behavioral Health Administration. There's no exception request in that unit. Page 231, 2502, Recovery Supports. There is one exception request in this unit on the top of page 232.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is a, relatively small general fund request that I am making. At our state hospital and our Life Resource Center, we take care of some of the state's most vulnerable patients, often committed to our facilities for psychiatric reasons, inability to care for themselves, dangerous to themselves or others. We really struggle in some of our facility settings with finding and having appropriate guardianship for some of these clients. We are pleased with our relationship with entities like Wyoming Guardianship Corporation when those needs arise, and we leverage that to the extent that we can. However, we find several situations where it would be very beneficial for us in our communities where our facilities are, with friends, family members, faith-based organizations, when there are volunteers who would like to serve as one of these clients' guardians, to be able to do things like pay their legal filing fees, which is often a barrier to pursuing guardianship. This is a $140,000 general fund request that I have in relation or comparison to the rest of the Department of Health's budget and our exception requests. I know this looks relatively small, but I'm also aware $140,000 is also not chump change, but I think we can stretch this request quite a ways. And this also helps us greatly in a tangent to the DD system that we were talking about earlier, because we often do get court-ordered commitments for folks that, yes, have psychiatric or mental health conditions, but also developmental or intellectual disabilities. And finding appropriate community-based placement for them often necessitates, unfortunately, which is something we pursue or that the legal system pursues very cautiously, to have guardianship so that those decisions can be made appropriately. With that, Mr. Chairman, I do have Reagan Latham here, Senior Administrator of our Behavioral Health Division. We're happy to answer any additional questions you have on this request.
Mr. Chairman, page 234, Unit 2505, Wyoming State Hospital. There's no exception requests in that unit. Page 238, Unit 2506, Outpatient Mental Health. There is an exception request on bottom of page 238.
And Mr. Chairman, this is what we closed with the Public Health Division. This is just a net to zero across the department, removing $400,000 from the Public Health Division and moving it to the Behavioral Health Division, where we currently manage our 988 Suicide Lifeline services. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Proceed.
Mr. Chairman, page 241, Unit 2507, Outpatient Substance Abuse. There is one exception request at the top of page 242.
And Mr. Chairman, this is a $0 general fund ask. This is for our federal state opioid response or SOAR grant. We have an AWAC position, number 97030, that has been allocated by the legislature to help us manage this opioid response grant. That's all federal funds, and the position and its indirect costs are funded with that grant as well. As per the usual in budget sessions before the beginning of a new biennium, we request these when we need them to be carried forward. That's what this request is, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, proceed.
Mr. Chairman, page 245, Unit 2508, Residential Mental Health, no exception requests. Page 247, Unit 2509, Residential Substance Abuse, no exception requests. And then on page 250, Unit 2510, Preschool Services, there are two exception requests in this unit. The first one is on the top of page 252.
And Mr. Chairman, this is in our mandatory requests category. We are compelled by statute to bring the external cost adjustment for the early intervention and education or developmental preschool program every year to the legislature. In addition to the current year's ECA, which gets calculated and passed on to the Department of Health for these programs, we are also required to bring all of the cumulative and unfunded external cost adjustments from prior years. If you look at the table on the bottom of page 252, going all the way through page 254, you'll see a little bit of history. I know it's kind of an eye chart with a lot of numbers and percentages, but on the far right column, you can see the approved amount. And in some years, that has been zero. In some years, that has been partial external cost adjustments approved. The next thing I'll mention for members of the committee is that in the last 2 years, the statutes around this program have changed through an enrolled act that was passed session before last that did a couple of things. Number one, it changed what we call the child count date, which means the children that are identified with developmental disabilities or delays that are eligible for these developmental preschool services. That count used to happen on December 1st, and we would update the legislature accordingly. Your statute from a couple of sessions ago changed that to May 1st so that we had better numbers going into planning for both budget and supplemental budget sessions. In addition, that bill changed the per-child amount that is actually put in statute. That's somewhat rare in Wyoming statute books, but the per-child per year amount is actually in the green books of what, at a baseline, the legislature intends for the department to pay. However, that number, historically, the Appropriations Committee and legislature has not funded to that number, and so we have to calculate both in terms of the child count and the ECA according to what is ultimately appropriated. And third, what that bill, that enrolled act did, in previous years, the ECA, the external cost adjustment, was calculated for us using one index of inflation. That enrolled act, the new statute, actually changes the way the ECA is calculated to align with the K through 12 system. So I believe there's now 3 indices of inflation that are included in that. So in the past 2 years or 2 calculations or so, you'll see that change from how it was done historically to how it's done now. But ultimately, what it results in is 2 different things. That bill changed the child count date, which determines how many children we ask for funding for, and we'll get to that in a subsequent request. And it also passes along the current year's ECA, as well as the unfunded and accumulated ECAs that we're compelled to bring to the legislature. This budget session, we have requested the full amount at 21.2, little north of $21.1 million, or $21.2 million for the external cost adjustment. In a subsequent request, you'll see our child count number is quite low. We actually had a reduction in children identified in one of the programs and a modest increase of, I think, 4 children in the other program. So the child count number is $50,000 or so. But this is the big item for the developmental preschool program. And I apologize in advance, as you remember from last budget hearing and last session, this is very, very complicated the way this program works. And in fact, the Department of Health operating both the 3-year-old through 5-year-old program and the birth through 2 program is somewhat unique nationally in that we are obviously appropriated by this body. We are governed by rule by the Wyoming Department of Education and governed federally by IDEA, or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, so regulated by the federal government. And in fact, the Department of Health is actually considered, for the purposes of those regulations, the 49th school district in the state of Wyoming. I never wanted to be a school district administrator, but here I am. We are happy to answer any questions you have about this. Like I said, there's a lot of nuance and some complexities of how this gets calculated. Luckily, Mr. McVicker, Ms. Latham, LSO have become armchair experts on this area, and we're happy to answer any questions you have about the ECA.
Questions? Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the bottom of page 252, I see contract year 27 with ECA requested. Trying to follow some of what you just said. Does that mean that in the supplemental budget, there will be a subsequent request with new numbers?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Pendergraft, yes, and this is an area of, constant debate. Going back to 2016, there was a management audit study that was conducted on these programs that essentially passed along an interpretation to us that every year, budget years and supplemental years, we should bring not only the most current ECA, if there is one, but also those cumulative unfunded ECAs. A couple more things I'd like to mention there, Representative Pendergraft, because it's important. One of the reasons that we do this every year, even in supplemental years, as opposed to projecting, for the biennium, is the federal government also has a maintenance of effort provision in this program. So, and a little bit frustratingly, this is approximately 90% state funded, if not more. And so anytime the legislature increases its appropriations, either for the per child amount or for the ECA in this program, you've set a new floor of funding because of that MOE, that federal MOE provision. So your Department of Health always wants to have its fiduciary responsibility to bring every year to the decision makers what any current ECA would be, because if we project it out for a biennium or even further, we would essentially be setting a new maintenance of effort floor with state funds. So hopefully that answers your question, Representative Pendergraft, but happy to elaborate.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. First, a follow-up on that last one. How did we deal with that federal maintenance of effort mandate in 2018 and 19 when we had a reduction in ECA?
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairman Bear, it's a good question. So in federal law and federal rule, there are a couple of ways that you can waive out of maintenance of effort. And I'll try to get the wording right. I believe one of them is a precipitous decline in state revenue. And we could obviously demonstrate that after biennium 17 and even in biennium 21 when we cut the budget again. Now, typically, when the federal government waives that, it's temporary. Once that situation recovers, okay, we're back into MOE discussions. I was involved in those discussions or negotiations, if you want to call them, with the federal agency who were interested in penalizing Wyoming, ultimately did not, based on the arguments we presented. The second way you can essentially waive out of MOE, which makes sense, is if you have a reduction in child count. So if you're serving less kids, then obviously we can demonstrate our MOE floor could lower.
So a follow-up to that. I'll get to my question here eventually, but follow-up to that is, 20 and 21 we had reductions in state revenues precipitated by the federal government. We had increases during that time. In 22 to 23, we went ahead and started approving increased ECAs. So what was the discussion like then?
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairman Bear, it's another good question. We did not attempt to waive out of MOE there because we weren't reducing it. We weren't cutting the budget for this at that time. So kind of the inverse there. I suppose in retrospect, we could have argued to lower the MOE floor by nature of the overall state revenue picture, but this body, the legislature, was not cutting those budgets at the time, so there was no need to ask for that waiver.
Yeah.
And now to my question. We've been in recalibration. We've been looking at, special education seems to actually be creating a situation where we're drawing families here. And I'm curious, how do we compare to other states around us in this regard to these developmental preschool facilities? And are we having an influx of families because we provide such a good service here?
Mr. Chairman and Co-Chairman Bear, just by the raw numbers over the past several years, we've actually been seeing a declining trend in enrollment in this program. So from a macro perspective, I don't see that here. In terms of comparison to other states' developmental preschools, we'd have to do a little bit of digging on that. We can follow up with a memo to the committee if there is a data source we could compare against. I haven't looked at it in some time.
Other questions? Okay, let's proceed. Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Director. So roughly 1,770 students, are we right there? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Haraldson, I was mistaken in saying yes to that. 3,766 kids between the two programs. Part C is birth to 2 years old. Part B is 3 to 5 years old, a total of about 3,700.
The next exception request is on the bottom of page 254, still in preschool services.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, bottom of page 254, this is what I mentioned in my comments. In addition to the ECA, where we need to bring you guys the updated child count figures, that's what you see here. 52,000 in general fund. Like I mentioned, a reduction in children identified in one of the programs, an increase in 4 children identified last May in another program.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, last unit in behavioral health is on page 258. Unit 2512 is the Wyoming Life Resource Center. There is not an exception request in that unit. Now we will progress into the aging division. On page 264, unit 5001 is the aging administration unit. There's no exception request there. Page 268, unit 5002, senior care, and there is one exception request in the middle of page 269.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we're kind of wrapping up the department's presentation here. These next 3 requests in the aging division are what I mentioned in my introductory comments. These are B11 cleanups with federal spending authority for older American Act grant funds that we typically would B11 into the system to provide to our senior centers for various programming. And there's a few areas here where we're just trying to clean up the standard budget authority. This is one of them in senior care. Happy to answer any questions. It's approximately $144,000.
Mr. Chairman, page 271, 5003 is nutritional services. There is an exception request on the top of page 272.
Mr. Chairman, same song, second verse here.
Mr. Chairman, page 274, 5004, Title VII elder rights. There is an exception request on page 275.
And Mr. Chairman, once again, $19,000 B11 cleanup for federal spending authority. Can answer any questions about all 3 of these if you have them.
proceed.
That's the end of our exception requests. I'll continue to go through the rest of the units, but there aren't any exception requests in these units. Page 277, 5005, Senior Volunteer Service Program, no exception requests. Page 279, 5007, Wyoming Senior Services Board, no exception requests. Page 281, 5010, Healthcare Licensing and Surveys, no exception requests. Page 285, Unit 5040, Pioneer Home, no exception requests. Page 289, 5050, Veterans Home, no exception requests. And lastly, on page 295, Unit 5060, the Retirement Center, there is no exception request in this unit. That concludes our budget book.
So, Director, do you want to, before I open it up to any questions, do you want to have any closing statement or wrap it up?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just, I don't have a speech prepared, so just briefly, I want to thank the committee for their time and reiterate what I mentioned this morning, that it takes a lot of dedication and time for the folks on your committee that spent time with us over the fall, over the interim, 8 hours at a time, 4 different times to dive into a pretty complex budget with not a lot of easy answers. We just very much appreciated the dialogue, the back and forth. Hopefully that can continue going into 2026 and going into the session. And with that, Mr. Chairman, as you know, from my perspective, we try to bring these issues, requests, policy items as objectively and dispassionately as we can. I hope for the folks sitting behind me, the folks that you'll hear from, it's certainly not to indicate that we don't care about the populations that we're serving and only care about the dollars and cents, but these are tough decisions, and we want to be the entity that you can rely on to bring you objective information on the pros and cons, the impacts both on the finances and services and lives of the people that we serve. So with that, again, thank you for your time, and we're happy to stand for any additional questions.
So are there any questions for the Department of Health? Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I think I need to have Mr. Springer come forward just to some detailed questions if he's still here. Who knows what Chairman Bear is going to ask, so be prepared. I'm just trying to save a phone conversation and then sharing this with the whole board so you can answer a question of mine. On the CHIP program, I understand it's an optional program, but some of these optional Medicaid type programs, you can never really back out of them. So my first question is this one of those where you cannot back out of it if you wanted to?
Chairman Salazar, Co-Chair Bear, CHIP, whatever flavor of CHIP, whether it's an S-CHIP or an M-CHIP, is an optional program, and the state could opt out of it if it wanted to, with the caveat that there's currently a maintenance of effort. As they do enhanced match, and then even when they retract enhanced match, the federal government, usually in continuing resolutions, has added various, no eligibility can be reduced for children in particular until a certain date. And I believe the current date is 2029, but I can get that date firmed up. Beyond that, Wyoming's, so every state has a different income threshold of how high of percentage of federal poverty level they go up to. Wyoming has probably one of the lowest. I think we're, bottom 5 states. So that means, 200%, some states go 250%, some states go 300%. But to my knowledge, every state has a CHIP program, and they just have funded those at different levels.
Yeah, since you've gone down that line, that really leads into my next question. It looks like the match rate is better in CHIP than it is for those below the 138%. Sometimes I know there's windows where we can actually get those people that qualify for Medicaid into a CHIP program. Do we see anything like that on the horizon? Have we skipped any of those opportunities?
Chairman? Yes, please. Co-Chair Bear, the Medicaid is subject to that same maintenance of effort. So we cannot reduce our children eligibility, but if we ever could, let's say that wasn't in place, younger children, their income is 156% of the poverty level, so it's 0 to 5 or 6. And then older children is up to 138%. And we don't really focus on this a lot because the income threshold is essentially 200% for children. So that's the number we really talk about, so people understand that they don't need to know, which pot of money they're being paid for. If there ever wasn't a maintenance of eligibility, we could reset to 138 for those older children. That was a conversion due to the Affordable Care Act when we moved to a new income standard. So in 2014, we all adopted modified adjusted gross income, MAGI. So you might hear this, MAGI. And it's not the 3 Magi, it is.
Tis the season.
Tis the season. But when we're talking about that, that's just it's an income methodology. It's based on the IRS. So it looks a lot like the income threshold that you would see on like a federal income tax. So that has disregards and certain things like that. So that would be an opportunity, and that's something we should definitely be aware of and think about, because if, it usually would be a savings, so we saw that higher enrollment in CHIP. Historically, when we've had higher enrollment in CHIP, we've had corresponding drops in Medicaid, and we haven't had to have budget requests because CHIP children are cheaper for the state, significantly so, about 30% cheaper. Just in terms of utilization, but also that federal match rate. So that's the sort of thing that could come up in the future, and that's something we definitely would bring forward.
Thank you.
Other questions? Any other questions? Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Stephen, if you could give me the total ask on FTEs in this budget.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Guru, I know we were a net negative 10 positions. I believe the total number of positions affected was 29. And our snapshot has that separately, so bear with me while I pull it up here.
Mr. Chairman, you can go to page 6, and you'll see the FTE count. Their standard was 1442, the ask is 1432, net 10, but movements from AWACS to full-times are in there as well. And Mr. Chairman, while I'm on moving AWAC to full-time, prior to Obamacare, there was a significant difference in payout for benefits for AWACS versus full-time. Now it's not. AWACS requires single, medical, so basically it's retirement. So as far as the difference, and I think the Department of Health's budget, you can see that, where they've converted an AWAC to full-time. Sometimes they're saving money.
And Mr. Chairman, Senator Guru, if I may, on page 3 of our summary document, just go by division. So we're requesting 2 in the healthcare financing division for our long-term care eligibility. We discussed that. 0 in the director's office, negative 13 in public health, and 1 in behavioral health, which is that AWAC continuation for the opioid response grant. And then 0 in aging for a net negative 10.
Okay, so, yeah, net negative 10, so 1443 was your last. Your high was in 2010 at 1703, and in 2018 it was, what did I say, 1550 something. So basically, that number has declined all the way down the line.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Guru, we have been on a slight gradual decrease of total FTE in the department. As Chairman Bear pointed out earlier this morning, we do have a significant amount of vacancies, almost all of them that are more than 6 months in our facilities, where we struggle to recruit nurses and CNAs. But during previous budget cut rounds, we did eliminate quite a few vacant positions as part of those reductions to remove budget exposure for those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would encourage the committee between now and markup that if you have any questions, to reach out to the department, and then the department also owes us some answers with that. So again, I thank you for the presentation. I know it was a lot of time today, but it was worth it, and so good. Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Richards? Are we ahead of schedule?
Mr. Chairman, you are, and right on time. However, the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources has arrived, so they're available whenever you wish to commence with them. The State Parks and Cultural Resources is Agency 024 for members. And because of the change in the agenda, you also had an item
Apologize. Continue with what you were saying.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. After the Department of State Parks and Cultural Resources, which is Agency 02424, you did have a short presentation on the agenda from the high school students who are competing in the Capitol today at 3:30. We'll try to get them up here right after State Parks.
Looking forward to that. Looking forward to that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Hello. How you doing? Good to see you here. For members of the public, introduce yourself and head right into your presentation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Dave Glenn, Director of State Parks and Cultural Resources. We just got notification that we were coming a little early, so I still have some stragglers that will be coming in, and I apologize for that. Karen Erickson will be sitting next to me. She's our CFO, AKA the Oracle, and she keeps me out of jail, so I appreciate her. And then with me is Sarah Sheen, Deputy Director, and then Chris Floyd and Nick Nealon, Deputy Directors, will be here as well. Mr. Chairman, if it's,
Give us a small, opening statement, and then we'll get into your budget and exception requests.
fantastic, thank you. First off, I'd like to thank all of you because you're on a big uphill climb right now, looking at all these budgets and agencies, and you know that you eat the elephant one bite at a time. You're at about one kneecap right now of one leg. So thank you all for your time and energy to make the Wyoming budget the best it can possibly be. Quick budget summary for the agency. We have a $68.23 million standard budget. Of that, $32.24 million is in general funds. There's $11.4 million of federal funds and $25.4 million of other funds. And Mr. Chairman, I'm proud to say that our BFY 27 budget is 47% generally funded. BFY 11, it was 70% generally funded. Additionally, our general fund budget, this biennium request, including the small exception requests, is $3 million less than it was in BFY 2011. $3 million less. In the same time frame, our agency saw an 18% decrease in employees, 32 full-time and 21 part-time employees. And since 2009, it's almost doubled in increase in services, requests and services, visitation, and other things. That 100% increase in visitation is a lot more toilet paper for those 229 outhouses we have at our parks. And the agency punches well above its weight. And I want to give an example. Nick Nealon, who is Deputy Director, he is on the National Association of State Park Directors Board. They were visiting a state park down in Texas. It's our second busiest state park in Texas, Garner State Park. 487,000 visitors in 2024. That's 59,000 less than we get at Kirk Gowdy State Park here, and 2,000 less than we get at Glendale State Park. They have 28 full-time employees at that park. We have 5 at each of our parks. And I don't say that to complain. In fact, it's probably bragging. We are lean, we're mean, we punch above our weight, and we're very proud of that. To that point, our agency was once again nominated for a Gold Medal Award. Top 3 state park systems in the country. We've never won that award, but this is the 3rd time we've made it to the top 3, and we're proud of that. Thank you. Thank you. And there will be a point sometime in the near future that I will probably be talking with you and the governor, because as we increase visitation, and it's doubled, while we're decreasing the amount of employees, we're going to need some help with employees sometime down the road. Now is not the time. We're really looking at efficiencies, trying to focus on things, but we will be reaching out to you sometime in the future.
A brief comment. I want to recognize Senator Pearson, who's here, and a valuable member of the State Senate, and appreciate you being here, Senator. Thank you. So with that, please continue.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, Nick Nealon and Deputy Directors Nick Nealon and Chris Floyd just joined us, so thank goodness. So when you stump the chump with me, you'll have the pros in the back to help answer the questions. Mr. Chairman, if it's all right, maybe we can move forward talking about state of the agency on page 5, if that works for you. And I'll be very brief on that. Mr. Chairman, we have 3 divisions. The Cultural Resources side of the house, which is the State Museum, the Wyoming State Archives, State Historic Preservation Office, Wyoming State Archaeologist, Wyoming Arts Council, and Wyoming Cultural Trust Fund. I want to highlight 2 of those because they kind of end up helping out statewide overall. One is the Wyoming State Archives. You know, we think about, oh, those really cool old photos are here in the facility in the Capitol, but they are also the repository for all of the other agencies. They have a retention schedule of records that they have to keep for a certain amount of time. Defunct Secretary of State records, corporate records, LSO bills, health records, court records, all those things. We're the keeper of those things as well, and we keep track of those. Additionally, our State Historic Preservation Office, yes, they do historic preservation, but they also help us meet federal law keep business and industry moving on federal lands. When there's projects, we're the agency that they come to and say, we need this area culturally cleared. We're going to meet Section 106 stipulations by the feds, and we get it done, and we get it done fast. So we're proud of that. Our agency kind of has the ability to touch almost every single individual in the state in one way or another. Because you've got the cultural resources side, and then we have the state parks, historic sites, trails, the trails program, and our outdoor recreation office. And then the last division is mine. It's very small. It's communications and marketing office, our accounting team, and we all share one executive assistant. Latest economic impact study shows a $781 million impact to the state. That is just in state parks and the trails program. It doesn't even include the cultural resources side. 2010, 15 years ago, it was 78.1 million. So while visitations doubled, our impact has grown tenfold. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about amazing staff that we have. These guys are passionate, incredibly passionate about what they do. They take pride in being a public servant. Sometimes you hear, oh, you're a state employee, you know, you guys get to drive cars and you're lazy and you work 9 to 5. And our guys don't work 9 to 5. They get their doors knocked on at 9 o'clock at night saying, where's my campground? I can't find it. I can't find my campsite. If you go by the museum on a weekend, there's 800 kids out there learning about the culture and history of Wyoming. These people are passionate about what they do, and they give their all to make Wyoming the best place it can possibly be. Mr. Chairman, if it's all right, maybe we can dive into the 7 exception requests. And as I recall, Representative Bear kind of likes them in order of the book, if that's correct. So we'll go that right? Okay, sounds great. Maybe we can start on page 17. This is a list of our 7 exception requests. And I kind of snicker after watching the health this morning and seeing our exception requests. But we're asking for the standard budget plus $4.247 million. Standard budget plus $4.247 million incorporated in these 7 exception requests. Of that 4.247, 367,308 is general funds, with 109,000 being ongoing. 640,000 is one-time spending authority of federal funds. And then we have 3.24 million of other funds with 1.1 million moving forward. So this is a total of 7 exception requests. And when we all got together as a team and started making a list, we had a lot more than that. But we really read the governor's letter and focused on what he said, focus on the essentials. So with every request, we asked the question, can we meet our mission and our strategic plan without this? And if the answer was yes, we scribbled it off. And that's how we narrowed it down to 7. That's total. Mr. Chairman, if there's no questions, I can dive right in and hit the first one.
Oh, Senator Drew, go ahead.
Hey, Dave, I just wanted to get, so out of your entire request package here that I'm reading on 17, 109,830 is ongoing. All the rest either comes from another fund or is a one-time request. 257,000 being a one-time request. The other, of general fund money, the others are federal funds and other funds, your fees, correct?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Drew, exactly.
Thank you.
So maybe we can dive into the exception requests. The first is on page 21. And this is a net to zero request. Mr. Chairman, our agency, as I mentioned, has 3 divisions. And anytime a position comes open within those divisions, we get the leadership team together and we say, should we rehire that position as is? What is the biggest hole in our agency? What is the biggest need that we have? So for example, Kirk Gowdy State Park, 2009, I had those numbers here. It's grown, visitation has grown tenfold at Kirk Gowdy State Park since 2009. So we look at those things and go, where do we need to put that employee? So we did that with the position that I had open, a communications and marketing specialist position in our communications and marketing office in my division. And we decided that it was best, after discussing it, it was agreed that this position would better strengthen customer service through expanding our interpretive and educational programming. So this request essentially takes a position out of Cheyenne, puts it out in the field to recognize the importance of public engagement. And I think I've told every one of you one-on-one around this room that our agency takes pride in honesty, integrity, transparency, and accountability. This net to zero request, now we're cleaning it up. So we're taking that position out of my division, putting it in the Parks Division, as well as the 100 series out of my division and put it into the Parks Division.
Any questions? Okay, continue.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chairman, the second priority is on page 22, but that's a TRP request, and I'm assuming we can just pass over that? Great, thank you. The next is on page 47, and that is Wyoming Cultural Trust Fund Spending Authority. And this is asking for $1.1 million of other fund spending authority. Mr. Chairman, as you probably remember, last year SF70 passed, and it was a new way to invest the Cultural Trust Fund dollars, as well as a new way to spend those dollars coming out. And that included the Cultural Trust Fund and the Wyoming Wildlife Natural Resource Trust. So essentially what that bill says is on July 1st, the Treasurer's Office is going to come to us and say, you have X amount of dollars to grant out in the coming year. The kicker with that is the Treasurer's Office will not know that number till October at the earliest, December, January at the latest. In the meantime, we have a granting cycle that goes through. That spending model is 3% of the 5-year average. So we should have a pretty good idea of how much money we will need to be able to grant out. So we'll take an estimate for the initial October granting cycle. Once we get those funds, we have an April granting cycle, and we will narrow it down to the penny after that. It's also about transparency, because in that new legislation, it says subject to legislative appropriation. And to me, I interpret that as no B11s. And so that is why I'm sitting here in front of you asking for $1.1 million in spending authority. We can't spend any more than what the Treasurer's Office number is. It would just stay in the corpus otherwise.
Any questions? Proceed.
Great, thank you. Mr. Chairman, the number one priority is Unit 249, and that's on page 67. That is Digital Archives Licensing and Maintenance. We're asking for $133,924 in general funds for digital archives licenses and maintenance. Of that, $91,728 is one-time funding, $42,196 is ongoing. Committee, this is about our agency trying to provide good customer service to other agencies. As I mentioned, it's also much more about transparency too. Wyoming State Statutes 92-406 and 92-408 require agencies, counties, municipalities to maintain and store documents for a specific amount of time based on records retention schedules. There's two ways that those documents are stored. We have a building, and I'm going to call it the Raiders of the Lost Ark model. Think of the last scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark when they've got the forklift in that giant warehouse. We have a building just like that south of town. There's 90,000 cubic feet of material, paper, in that facility. Court records, tax records, health records, all of the other agencies thing. No ARCs. We don't have any ARCs, thank goodness. So the Raiders of the Lost Ark model is one way to do it. And seriously, agencies show up with a box truck and give us boxes of paperwork. We sort through it, we put it in a database so we know where it's at, and we get on a forklift and we go down aisle 14, base 6, section 2, and put that box in there. The second way is the digital archives. And most things are done digitally nowadays. So instead of them driving it to us storing it, I have full-time staff across the street that do nothing but take those boxes and digitize those documents slowly. They did 723,000 documents last year. That's a drop in the bucket to 90,000 cubic feet of material. The second way is you have these licenses, you push the buttons, and it automatically gets sent to the digital database. And I've been told that there's 11 terabytes of data currently. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. So make sure I understand it correctly. This software would allow the producer of that document to hit a button, or does it need to come to you first before you hit that button?
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chairman Bear, it's the latter. It allows them to actually put it into the database and access that information out of the database, which is very important. So, I've been told there's 11 terabytes of data in that database. I don't know what that means, but when they told me, it sounded like it was a lot. It looked big on their face. So there's two ways to get information out of that. Let's use a water right as an example. The water records. Somebody could come to our archives right now and say, I would like to get information on this water right for this township and range, 1868 water right. They would fill out a form. We would take that form over to that building and we'd put it in a stack of paper at the bottom of the stack of papers this high. And staff would take the top piece of paper and walk through, look in the database where it's at, go up and get that information. But they said they want all information. And usually when you start going through that, they refer to another water right or another thing. So it's usually 4 or 5 steps they have to do. Go to the database, get the information, pull it out. 2 weeks to 2 months. That's how long it takes to get that information. Or they could actually show up at the state engineer's office and ask that information. They can punch a button if it's in the database, send it to them electronically right then and there. That's what this database information does. And with that, I would stand for any questions on.
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thank you for being with us today. And right out of the gate, I just want to say I appreciate just the work you and your staff have done to keep a budget clean and in check. And I know as we've talked over the last year, I know that that was definitely your passion, and I appreciate that. And I respect and honor you for that. What about the Raiders of the Lost Ark database that would have to be brought in? Talk to me a little bit about that logistical process. If this were to go into play, how do you start bringing that massive amounts of paperwork into a digital archive?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Haroldson, good question. Right now, we do have the digital database. This is to purchase more licenses for that. We also are eating a little bit of the elephant at a time, 723,000 documents. We probably will never get through all of those documents. Some of those are stored for a period of 7 years. For us, on something like that, it's probably not worth us to take the time to scan that data and that information. If it's something that needs to be kept for perpetuity, that's something we can look at and just start doing that. And that's what we are slowly plugging away with folks on the second floor over there.
Any other questions? Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up is priority number 4, Unit 420, and that is on page 85, and that's motorized trails program equipment. Mr. Chairman, this is very common. We come to you every biennium to ask permission for spending authority for other funds for the motorized trails program. The one thing I would like to say about the motorized trails program is it is a great example of pay to play. People buy the sticker that goes on their snowmobile. That allows them to use groomed snowmobile trails that we maintain and that we build, and the same with the ORV. And it's a program that doesn't use any general funds because of that. And to the point that snowmobile community came to you all last year through us, and there was a fee increase that they were asking for because they said with inflation, we're starting to see things go downhill a little bit. Please charge us more because we want to access these trails. Pardon me?
What's the cost?
For snowmobile, residents is $50, non-residents is $75. Commercial, I believe, is $150. It's $150. ORVs are $15.
Okay. Yes, Senator Driscoll.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Director Glenn, how much, I was looking at your list of your money coming in, how much has the Forest Service been giving you all in on all the different trails and everything? And do you expect that funding to hold tight, or are we going to be faced with rollbacks from the federal government?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Driscoll, very good question. We don't receive any federal funds for those trails. In fact, we sometimes loan equipment out to them because they are the folks that do the law enforcement on the trails. So to make sure that people are actually putting the stickers on the machine. So we're going to be just fine on that. The one issue that we are having with them is that they can't hire seasonals. and those are the seasonal law enforcement staff. So we're starting to have conversations with them on, is there a way we could do that? Is there a way county sheriffs could do it? We don't know the answer, but that's something we're working on through that process.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
follow up.
please.
I guess I'm looking here at the 600 series, and I'm looking at 442,000 for ORV program that's vendors, the Forest Service. There's a number of them down through there. What are those, and where's the money coming from?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Driscoll, the money is coming from those sticker fees
Okay,
for the most part. There is some federal gas tax dollars in there too, potentially. And it goes for education and law enforcement. So sometimes we are providing them machines. We do not give them machines, but we loan them equipment so they can go out on the trails, hire their seasonals, and do law enforcement pieces on that.
Mr. Chairman, one
Yes,
last. And what's total dollars brought in off the ORVs and the deal? What's our total income?
Chris, do you know? Mr. Chairman, stand by, Senator Driscoll, we'll get that information to you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in no hurry on it, and I don't need it even right here, but income and what we spend is kind of what I'm looking at. Thank you.
Yeah, I will get back to you with that information.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions? Okay, Director Hibbert, and then Representative Harrelson, and my co-chair.
Mr. Chairman, just real fast, on page 4, you'll see all in state parks, special revenue, 27,787,090. So it's got a little other things that are going on in their agency that are the snowmobiles, motorboats, and that kind of stuff, but 27 million.
Thank you. Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And one thing, just to reiterate, because this was something I had some fun with on our snowmobile tags, we also put in there an age. So because one of the issues that I had with bringing it up to $50 is you got that gentleman who went and bought 4 old machines and he wants to take his kids to the mountains once a year. And he has to go put $200 into those 4 machines to go riding once. That's problematic. So Director, if you wouldn't mind kind of also sharing that caveat that went in there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative Harrelson. Yes, we actually created an antique snowmobile permit, and I cannot remember the number. I think it was $25 for a lifetime. Was it lifetime, Chris? For a lifetime. And that if it was, snowmobile was over a certain number of years old, that you could purchase that permit for $25 for exactly what Representative Harrelson was saying. And then there's also a trend, kind of like old car shows, there's old snowmobile shows where they all get together and drive around, 1960s snowmobiles as well.
This may be for Director Hibbert, maybe you can answer it, but on page 86, it's not actually special funds. It says there's 49,000, which is 2.18% of general funds. How did that get in there?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Bear, again, a very good question. Overall, we're asking for $2.27 million. $908,300 is snow, $671,500 is ORV, $640,000 is federal funds, and then you see that $49,000 in general funds. And the reason being is, when Chris came on as the deputy director, we decided to move the non-motorized trails program under the motorized trails program. Used to be in the Office of Outdoor Recreation. By statute, you cannot spend those snowmobile dollars from those stickers or those ORV dollars for those stickers. They must be spent on snowmobile trails. So this is $49,000 to purchase 2 equipment trailers to be able to haul equipment back and forth for our non-motorized trails program from park to park and site to site.
Mr. Chairman, at that end, you'll see on page 91 that state parks in their trails program has $549,664 of general funds for that purpose. So there is general funds in trail program.
Continue.
So the reasoning for this equipment is we have little, if no backup equipment. So I'm going to give an example of snowcats. We have 13 snowcats set up around the state to plow or to groom 2,600 miles of trails, but they go 90,000 miles a year because they're grooming constantly and consistently. This doesn't happen in the daytime. This happens at night for safety's sake. And they are out there, and they're sometimes 20 or 30 miles away from the closest trailhead, roadhead. So there's a safety issue in having good equipment out there, but there's also an efficiency issue. When you have those 13 snowcats and one of them breaks down, it can take a month to get that equipment out of the field, get it on a trailer back to Lander for our mechanics to look at it, get it repaired, get it back out in the field. In the meantime, someplace in the state is not going to be groomed because we just don't have backup sitting there when you're spending that kind of money on large equipment. There's also another efficiency piece, and I'll throw that out there that, you know, our staff, they're out there clearing trails, doing things. They have 44,000 snow stakes they have to put in the snow to create trails that go through the mountains. And I've been out there in a whiteout with those guys, and I was just so thankful that those were there because I had no idea it was like driving off Beaver Rim at 10 o'clock at night in a blizzard. I was going reflector to reflector throughout, and that's what those are for. But they have to go out every time it snows and pull those stakes up because otherwise they get buried. And then in the spring, they're pushing the stakes back down in the snow. So if they go out there and they're based out of Lander, if they're driving to the Black Hills to do this work, and they get out there 20 miles and they blow a head on a chainsaw, they've lost 2 or 3 days worth of work because they've got to get back out of the mountains, get back to Lander, get it fixed or get another one and get back there. And same with their snowmobiles and other things. So there's a safety factor as well. I can say that our team over there keeps a very comprehensive database on what snowcat has had, what maintenance, what amount of work has been done to it, what are the issues that it's had. And they know from experience that this thing is going to start breaking down at X amount of hours based on the location of where it's at, based on how it's been used.
Any questions? Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next exception request is on page 100, and this was the agency's 7th priority. Mr. Chairman, many years before my time as director, our agency worked with the Human Resources Department to combine 2 half-time positions and fill it with 1 individual. And there's 2 positions like that within our agency. One position is the superintendent of both the Historic Governor's Mansion and Quebec One. And that came about when Quebec One came on board several years ago. We had asked for an employee and the site was given to us to manage without additional staff. So we said, what are we going to do? And so we worked with HRD. We combined these 2 positions into 1 individual, and they manage both those sites. And it works out very well because they share resources and do a lot of things, and it wasn't an additional draw to the state budget. Additionally, at Kirk Gowdy State Park, Visitor Center Services positions, we had 2 level 4 positions that were half-time, and we couldn't hire those positions because at that compensation level for somebody to drive from Cheyenne up there, that's an hour round trip. That's probably an hour's worth of fuel that they are spending that they earn. We just couldn't fill the position. So we worked with HRD to combine those. In July of this year, Human Resources came to us and said, when both these positions are filled right now, when those people move on, we're not going to fill those as one individual in 2 part-time positions. So this net to zero request, it is no additional funds to the state, is to combine part-time positions number 0015 and 00132 into 1 full-time position, and same with 0030 and 0432. It's maintaining efficiency, productivity, and full transparency. If you look at the exception request, you'll see we're dropping the total number of part-times by 4 and adding the total number of full-times by 2.
Any questions? Any questions? Okay, proceed.
Mr. Chairman, we're down to the bottom here. Last up is priority number 3, Unit 490. That's on page 109. That's State Parks Heavy Equipment and Replacement. This request is for spending authority from the State Parks account. Mr. Chairman, I sat in front of this committee 2 years ago and said, we are going to be coming to you every biennium for the next 3 bienniums and requesting roughly $500,000 worth of heavy equipment for our state park system. We did receive that funding last year. This is the second request, last biennium, excuse me. This is the second request, and we'll be doing the same in a couple of years. As you can see, we're replacing equipment that's 21 to 44 years old. We can't find parts for this equipment. It's breaking down, and it's a safety factor for our employees.
Any questions? Okay, great. Do you want to sum it up? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm going to ask this because we're so far ahead of schedule. If Director Hibbard would help, this is for my education. This is nothing that the agency is doing or not doing. I am still struggling with our cost allocation. And so when I look at page 78, there's a table there. So this example is Land and Water Conservation Fund. I see a cost allocation, base budget, standard budget that matches then the state cost allocation in the source of funding. So this is one example where I'm like, oh, the numbers match. Director Hibbard, could you walk us through this scenario? And I have a follow-up scenario where I'm like, the numbers don't match. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to have this conversation today. The reality is I believe that there's going to be a point of time with the implementation of the request that we had in the State Budget Department to automate the statewide cost allocation so we have all the nice graphs and charts and flows. There's just hundreds of thousands of moving parts. But for today's conversation and with the email threads, and I thank Representative Sherwood for asking those questions because it prepared me for this conversation. So the first point that I want to make is this all goes through the Federal Office of Health and Human Services. And if you want to have this conversation, you can go into the state library, you can go to 2 shelves north of the receptionist desk, 2 racks to the west, and you can see the 3-ring binders that support the statewide cost allocation. It's out there for everybody, but it's complicated. I'm not going to say it's not. One of the things that we make sure that we're doing in this process is we're making sure that we're targeting the federal government for their allowable costs. Let me say that again. One of the missions is to make absolutely certain that we're targeting the federal government for their allowable costs, what they'll allow us to bill us, and not burden the special revenues unnecessarily. So in the first conversation, the first question, and I'm going to go into further detail, on page 78, you see that the statewide cost allocation, the 300 series, is an exact mirror of the SWCA. SWCA is a federal target. We want to make sure that we target that, we report upon it, and we make sure that we're collecting that. Imagine that you're getting $1,000 from the federal government, but you're only getting $10 from special revenue because the allowable costs work that way. If you collect $2,000, then your allowable cost for the special revenue gets de minimis and smaller and smaller and smaller. That's our mission, to make sure that the federal government is properly targeted. So what I'll point out on this is SWCA is the federal target code. If it's a special revenue code, we don't use SWCA, and that's why you got the imbalance, because there's an influence of special revenue on that other unit that we are billing the statewide cost allocation. So SWICAP is a 2-year look back. We use the audit statements and we look back 2 years and we say, okay, these are the allowable costs according to the federal government that are available under audit. SWICAP uses the audited costs exactly like that. SWICAP allowable costs are finite. Let me repeat that. SWICAP allowable costs are finite. We cannot bill the federal government more dollars than we experience in our shared service administrative centers. The State Budget Department, the Auditor's Office, Risk, Archives. We can't bill more than we experience. That wouldn't be fair, would it? So the SWICAP allowable costs are finite. If we use federal fund to get to that finite amount, that's a win for Wyoming. And I'm going to point that out repeatedly. SWICAP allowable costs are finite to each agency. Okay, so I can't bill the Department of Health for the allowable cost that is due to state parks. It's finite per each agency. Feds don't allow us to cross that up. very complicated, but we don't do it. SWICAP is mathematical. A heavier federal amount of fund attracts more federal dollars and relieves the pressure on the associated special revenue. But remember, general funds are credited. We don't bill the general fund from the left pocket to the right pocket. So when you see the conversation earlier, the $566,000 in trails for the general fund, they get a credit for that general fund. Because why would we bill ourselves? We're just billing the federal government and the special revenue sources. This is why this is so important, is that we focus on the ratio. The higher the ratio of the federal dollars, the less the ratio for the special revenue. That's why we segregate them. That's why you see SWCA, so that we can make sure that that's the target amount. Now, maybe the agencies aren't going to bill that federal grant. This happens. They get a B11, they ask for that federal spending authority, but they don't cost allocate it. We want them to cost allocate it. We want that federal dollars to pay for our administrative costs. And oh, by the way, there's this thing called an indirect cost allocation. So I do the statewide cost allocation. The statewide cost allocation then pools some funding. That pool of funding goes over to the state parks, and they use that administrative cost as an argument to increase their federal indirect cost rate. Department of Health, this is big. Department of Family Services, this is big. But our state budget department, state auditor's office, is a portion of the argument that is negotiated with the federal government for their indirect cost allocation. Very important. Also, you're going to hear when we do OSLI, when we do their budget, you're going to hear about this de minimis rate. The de minimis rate started out with OMB to say, you can bill us 10% without any arbitrated rate, with all the busy work that you have to do for an indirect cost allocation, all that stuff that is painful. State Parks knows how painful that is. The federal government, prior to October 1st of last year, not 25, but 24, de minimis. You can charge us 10%, just let it rock. They increased that to 15%. In OSLI, you're going to see the fire revolving account. We're going to recommend them increasing it from 10% to the 15%. So these agencies that have a B11, that have federal grant in them, that don't have an indirect cost allocation, they can go directly to 15% at the de minimis rate and bill the feds for that. That's also in these calculations to make sure that we're maximizing what we can get for the federal government to administer these programs. I heard earlier today, well, the federal government, they set up this program and now they're retracting it and they expect us to pay for it. Well, at least we're assured that when they set up these programs, they're paying for the administrative costs. Mr. Chairman, I'll certainly answer any questions and hopefully I've tagged those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hibbert. That's very helpful. Did that help?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was part one of a billion questions that I still have, but I want to honor that we have some amazingly bright minds in the room, and I'm happy to pause and continue my education lesson after we hear from the We the People students, if that, whatever the chairman would like, I'm happy to pause.
Well, I want to get finished with this. We're at the end here. And so I know Senator Grew has a question, so now's the time if you have.
Okay, so I do have a follow-up, thank you. So this example on page 78 was where that cost allocation matched the statewide cost allocation. So the other questions I have are on page, let's see, 53. So this is under SHPO administration. We see a cost allocation under expenditures, and then we see that federal calculation under the source of funding. So that could be an example if Director Hibbert wanted to walk me through that. And this is an example where we don't see that the numbers are balancing each other out.
Mr. Chairman, you have a cost allocation in the record that says 301 cost allocation restrictive services of $281,512. In the last example, under the statewide cost allocation SWC for the federal funds, it was the mirror amount. But in this case, it's $195,293. The difference is their allocation to the special revenue charges for services, special revenue code 5228. Again, Mr. Chairman, we want to maximize the federal government exposure, lessen the amount, but the difference between those two calculations is simply SWCA is the federal portion. If you have a larger portion than the federal portion, it's got a portion of special revenue with the federal funds. You have to add those two events together. And I'm more than happy to demonstrate that online to anybody, anytime if they'd like to see it.
Not sure what.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to the committee for this patience as I try to soak all this in and educate myself. On page 58 and 59, there's the unit budget request for the Wyoming Arts Council. I guess there's two-part question. Again, that example of the cost allocation. Again, we're seeing a big jump between the standard budget and what the base budget was, and then flipping over to page 59, looking at that federal statewide cost allocation, also jumping quite a bit from the base budget to the standard budget. But I guess the philosophical question, other than here's another example of where I don't understand the numbers and I'm still learning, is when we look at something like the Wyoming Arts Council, where the majority of their funding is from the NEA, federal government, those go out in grants, and we're applying the cost allocation model, does that mean that there are less grants for our communities to receive because of this calculation? And that's more of a policy question. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, sure, policy question. Answer in a direct fashion is that I'm using the word target. I didn't pick that word for just some random reason. I'm saying target is because we're legitimate in the approach of what saying, well, should that grant all go to the local government, or should we fully cost allocate it? So I'm very careful with the terminology that I'm using, but you will see on that page 58 that the cost allocation did go from 153 to 530,000, but you'll also see that the federal portion of the SWICAP went from 49 to 405. It's the burden of the federal government that is creating this. Now, we may have gotten some B11s that you don't have in your standard budget. They may have asked for Attorney General services that we have to allocate. A lot of different reasons would pull that through, but in this example, great example of the fact that the increased cost allocation is targeted for the federal government. And the ultimate choice is, sure, we want to get all of our federal dollars that we can. And then those federal dollars turn into general fund dollars. And then this committee, you have $50 million in your profile that we collect from statewide cost allocation. So if you make that policy decision that you don't want to do that anymore, the simple answer is $50 million will solve the whole statewide cost allocation issue. We won't bill the feds for their administrative costs and we'll walk away. I know that's just an example, Mr. Chairman, but that's the reality of what we are trying to do.
Hey, I'd like to get to the minority leader. Is there any other follow-up? Okay. Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, I wanted to just make a comment to Dave, and because it does, we get these narratives about what government is, what government isn't. And, we all are out and about with our constituents and we hear things, and then just wanted to mention one that I heard. Sarah over here at Cultural Resources, actually Parks and Cultural Resources has a lot to do with our energy folks. And it's about clearing properties when new projects come online, and they have to be cleared from a cultural resource standpoint. In a lot of states, energy people tell you that's like the black hole of Calcutta, to go into that, because it's a way that some use to kind of circumvent projects that they don't like. And what I hear time and time again from our energy industry, from the folks in the energy industry here, is that Wyoming and the way they approach it, the way this department approaches it, should be a model for the whole country. Because while they do their jobs and they get done what they need to get done, but they do so in a timely manner, in an efficient manner, and with a sympathetic ear towards what folks are trying to do. Because the energy companies don't want to destroy culturally significant areas either. They want to work around them whenever they can. They want to do the right thing. And so that's the kind of attitude that they feel they get from this department. And I just wanted to let Dave and Sarah know that it's something that I hear from the energy folks, and it is, really is, it is very much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Director Hibbert.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your patience. I would like to make the statement that of all the things that we do with the federal government and with the state special revenue, we do not cost allocate to the local governments. Guardian Litem, the Public Defender's Office, those are matching ratios that are direct billed. So there's $3.8 million through all these calculations that are attributable to the local governments, and they benefit by that because we do not cost allocate. We do not send the local governments a bill for statewide cost allocation. That's very important. We don't send them a bill for the statewide cost allocation. We don't bill Lizard. We don't bill SIPA. We don't bill the general fund. All those other pots of money, we don't cost allocate because they're no different than the general fund. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Glenn, thank you. Thank you very much for getting the point of interest sign up at Salt Creek in such an expedient amount of time. I was a little disgruntled with you, though. Every time I'd call your office, I didn't have a fight. And they never told me no. They said yes. And I never had a fight. And the final call I made with them, I said, Edgerton's birthday is on this certain day. Can we have the ribbon cutting then? I didn't think we could. She says, absolutely. I really appreciate all the work and everything that you folks put into it. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Alleman, thank you. And if you're looking for a fight, we can do that as well if you need that, so.
Okay, Director, one last opportunity. Any questions before Representative Harrelson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I may regret this, but just looking at your unfilled position list, the majority of all those are either unfunded or seasonal. But I did notice right up at the top, Park Superintendent 2 for Glendo. Talk to me about that. Where are we at on some of those? Because I know it's my district, and I know we've been having some issues just trying to get all that ironed out. Can you tell me where we're at?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harrelson, we've had that position open since May. It's tough to open a park superintendent position in May because that's when all the park superintendents around the country are really busting their hump to get work in for the summer. We have interviewed 3 different times for that. We have not found the appropriate candidate yet. I can honestly say part of it is compensation as far as what we can allow and what we can pay. But we are continuing to fill that, work on that. And I think over the winter, that's when park superintendents nationwide have time to start thinking about the future. So our fingers are crossed that, right now we're sitting okay. Come March, if we're sitting in this situation, we're going to be in trouble. So we're continuing to work through it.
Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Director, thank you for being here. Appreciate all your work. Time to talk about the dreaded Arboretum. So $3.5 million. We, during the supplemental budget, recouped about 3 million of that. What's happened since then?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Bear, I'm going to phone a friend and have Nick Nealon step up, and he's been the one that's been working on that throughout.
Mr. Chairman, Nick Nealon, Deputy Director, State Parks Cultural Resources. So the $3.5 million, we spent some funds off the top of that for a facility condition assessment. The rest of the money has been allocated to the city of Cheyenne through a contracting process. As they expend funds on projects, they submit them to us for approval. We approve the contracts, and the money goes out in that fashion. All the money has been encumbered to the city at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. Deputy Nealon, who now owns the Arboretum? Who's responsible for it? We're contracting with the city. Is there an MOU? Where are we at in that regard? And as I recall, the initial study said about $20 million was necessary to get the facility up to speed. So what is the plan going forward?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman, the city of Cheyenne continues to own and operate the Arboretum. We have no ownership stake in that facility.
With that, Director, thank you so much, appreciate it. Again, I will advise the committee if they have any additional questions before the markup to contact your office. And thank you for being here, appreciate it. Well, I'm really excited, committee, that we have a group of incredible young people. Is the organizer here? Is Andy here? Andy, come on up here. And these young future leaders, please take a chair at the front row or at the desk here, because we definitely want to hear from you. And for the people watching on online, I want to very briefly talk about what We the People student organization is. We the People, the Citizen, and the Constitution is a nationally recognized civic education program that helps high school students deepen their understanding of the U.S. Constitution, Bill of Rights, and principles of American democracy. Through an engaging curriculum and simulated congressional hearings, students develop critical thinking, research, and public speaking skills while exploring how constitutional ideas apply to contemporary issues. The program culminates in competitive hearings at local, state, and national levels, fostering informed, active citizenship and preparing students to participate meaningfully in our democratic system. And it's so great to have you here. And Andy, if you could introduce us to who is here and any comments you would have. And for the sake of the committee, I would love to hear from your group. And then I would also like to open it up for any questions that you may have to the Joint Appropriations Committee for the state of Wyoming.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for having us here today. I want to introduce you to the kids from Cody High School. They're going to tell you a little bit. There's a very specific reason why we asked the kids from Cody to be here. If you remember in the past, we've had the kids from Sheridan, and the kids from Sheridan are delightful, but we've got more kids than just the Sheridan kids. And we want you to know a little bit about how they do things in Cody. So would you guys mind introducing yourselves and tell us kind of how you run things at Cody High School?
Yeah, I'll start introducing myself. I'm Wade Bauer. I am the student representative that was elected to our school board. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dylan Power. I'm captain of the speech and debate team.
I'm Nick Stewart. I'm captain of the tennis team, part of the We People group.
I'm Kristen Boyson, and I'm a lobbyist through Youth for Justice. I'm Sunday Shu. I have my own small business, and we're part of Unit 2. Our teachers are Mrs. Hawes and Mr. Cox in Cody. And what makes our school special as far as We the People is concerned is that we make it a graduation requirement for all seniors to go through the We the People competition. At other schools, such as Sheridan, Cheyenne, Central, some of the other big schools that our facilitator mentioned, it's an extracurricular, so a lot of these kids that are already passionate about politics have the opportunity to come to the state legislature, to compete in this event, to possibly go on to the national level. But at Cody High School, we have our own local competition. So we get the whole community involved. We bring in our parents, we bring in community members, lawyers, different people holding positions in our community, and they judge us at the local level as well.
It almost becomes a celebration of civic education, especially for high schoolers. This is something very new that we're just trying out, and I think that's going very, very well. We actually just got out of round, which I think we kind of nailed it. But
Can you tell them what you were just presenting on downstairs before you came up here?
yeah, I've been speaking, so I would.
So our topic is kind of like the framers of the Constitution and what their intentions are with how we develop as develop through society with the Constitution. So we talked about anti-federalists versus federalists and how they turned into the parties that we have now.
So the question that we just were asked and that we just presented for was if the American Revolution was more of a political, social, economic revolution. We said that it was more of a social revolution because it didn't really change any of the, or more of a political revolution, sorry, because it didn't really change any of the class structures before and after. But in our research, we did so much research, just about like the history, going back and forth, the court cases, really deepening our understanding of not only our past, but also how current government works today.
And I think we kind of took a stance different from what other groups chose. I think the judges were kind of surprised with what we chose, but I think we argued it very well. It was really kind of a fun project. It takes a lot of extracurricular time. We're always in Mrs. Haas's room during our free periods and always working on this. So it's a lot of effort has been put into this, and I'm having a lot of fun. I know these guys are too. So.
And it's been a really good way to get members from all sorts of different extracurriculars. As you can see, like we're all involved in multiple different sports and clubs, and get us to unite on like one specific civic project, which I think is really, really beneficial to our future because everything really can be summed up to civic education, and this is how you do it. This is how you educate the youth.
And I think what's really cool about having it as a graduation requirement, you see all these kids who previously haven't really shown a lot of interest in school-related subjects, but they get so passionately involved in it. And like I talked about all the extra time we put in, and you just see these kids that aren't normally passionate about it, just like so passionate and involved. And I think it's just a really cool program that we have in Cody. A lot of people shine, and it's just, yeah, it's a great program.
Yeah. I know, because, we do this during our AP government class. I know during class, whenever a topic comes up that people in their individual essays have researched, when a question about that is asked in class, their eyes just like light up and like, oh, I know this. And that's just really great to see.
The reason we brought up the questions is the whole program is around questions. So there are 18 questions their class has been given at the beginning of the year, and it is up to them to do the research. It is disciplined inquiry, so that we have a pathway for you to go down, but you get to make up your own decision, you get to do your own research, you get to think your own thoughts. There's a lot of freedom in it. And I think a lot of kids really enjoy that because they know that, hey, I get to take a stance for something, and there might be somebody who pushes back on that a little bit, and we're gonna have to kind of work it out. And to watch the folks in Cody come together around the Constitution is really inspirational. It really is. It's fun to see a night where we all come together for something other than sports. I love sports. I'm a high school soccer coach, but there's other things, there's other reasons why we can convene. And I think in order to celebrate the Constitution and to celebrate the hard work of these young people, we really would like to see this continue to grow and not just be sort of a thing for the advanced placement kids. It's a thing for all kids because that is the fundamental reason why public schools exist, is to help build citizens. Right, and help understand the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. And I think you'll find that that's what this program does. And I just am really appreciative of you all joining me up here today. One of the other things that Joint Appropriations should be aware of is that we have got a budget footnote the last 10 years. We've got a little $120,000 every biennium. That $120,000 goes towards our state competition primarily. It helps the teams make it to the national competition if they were to win. It buys food. This guy's had lunch today. They got, what time did you get on the bus this morning?
4:45.
So they got on the bus at 4:45. By the time they got to Cheyenne, they were hungry. We had a sandwich waiting for them, but we would respectfully will request another, hopefully another budget footnote this year to try to keep this program up and running. And we've got problems. We've got places like Natrona County that have hardly any kids doing this program. And so we're really working actively to try to make this something that's available everywhere in the state of Wyoming. We think it's the best of public education.
Yeah, and it's so fun for us to get dressed up besides for prom, for something other than that, and compete about something that we truly do care about. We wouldn't be here if we didn't, because like we said, we had to win at our local level to move on to this. It is a friendly competition there, so it's super fun to get dressed up.
And then if I may add one more thing, I truly believe that education is one of the most important things you can finance. It's a fact that for $1 put into a student, you get $11 in return. And I can't think of anything, a better place to put it than in civic education specifically, where we can learn about how the government works and how policy affects us personally, and then what we can do as citizens in order to change the world around us.
And like we said, we do represent a variety of clubs, but for those of us that do sports, it's kind of fun to get like a competitive fix in a different way besides a crosstown rivalry or traveling, the long distances that we do in Wyoming for other sporting events. So it's super fun. Different perspective on competitive.
Well, it's great that you're here. And Mr. Pennell, thank you so much for what you do. We have a couple minutes. I'd love some interaction. I think if any members of the committee had any questions for these students, I'd entertain that. And then, to be fair, I'm going to open it up for you students if you have any questions for these elected officials. So does anyone here in the committee have any comments or questions for these young leaders? Anything? Okay, so let's go with my co-chair and then Representative Angelos.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Thank you all for being here. It's very inspiring to us to see you all doing this. I'm going to start kind of with the last thing that came to mind first, and that is that I appreciate you dressing up too, because I own a dry cleaners. But really, when you guys started talking and showing your knowledge about federalism, it reminded me of Alex de Tocqueville's book, Democracy in America. He was traveling through the young America 50 years after the founding, and he was in the backwoods, and he found a gentleman that had just carved out a cabin out of nothing. And he went in and spent the night with him. But that gentleman knew his rights, and he had a constitution tacked to the wall. Barely educated at all, but he knew his rights. And so you guys are proof positive that we need to continue educating on our civil rights, the things that come from the Constitution for the United States. I appreciate that. And now I have a question for you. You said that you're mandated to do this class. I came from the military, several of us did, and we know what it's like to have a draft, if you will, the quality compared to a voluntary military. So you have these other schools that you compete with where it's completely voluntary. It's kind of a draft system where you guys are at. How's your quality in your organization? And I do appreciate the comments earlier about you're getting kids interested that probably wouldn't be otherwise. And I think the comment about Natrona County proves that true. So please just share with me your thoughts of the quality of your program.
Absolutely. I think that we have quality candidates from everywhere in our school. We have a lot of students from our AP government class that have qualified to come to the state competition, but we also have a lot of students that didn't necessarily come from the AP government class. We all have the same opportunities when we go to the local competition. We're all on the same playing field. So our teachers are the ones that kind of put those groups together. They try to make it as fair as possible. They put some strong players on teams and try to keep that as fair and as even as possible. So we're all getting that enriching experience. We're all kind of learning from each other. We're all getting that. Like I said, we have students from our entire senior class here today competing downstairs. And we're really proud of that. We're really proud of the diversity that we have and all of our students who, some of them didn't even know where the quote, "We the People" came from before starting this project. So it's a big honor to have some kids that have made such strides towards civic education and having that knowledge today.
And if you need any more proof on that, I know when we competed at the local competition, we had people move on to state. The people that didn't make it, I know there's just a giant list of those who wanted to come and who asked our teacher if they could fill in empty spaces. So we got the privilege of actually coming, but there are so many others that were just so interested in this. And so I think everyone enjoys it, even if it's a mandated thing. I think so many people get so involved and they really wanted to be here today. We were really fortunate to be able to do something like this. So.
And although it's a grad requirement and everyone's mandated to do it, the judges are the ones who get to decide who comes ultimately. So it's the winning units, and if there are people in those units who aren't able to make it, the judges get to pick the alternates as well. And so it's not necessarily our teachers, and it's not us. It really is those who have watched us present who get to see who has the quality to do well at state.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for all for being here. So I'm going to ask just some basic questions because I think it's important for if other school districts are listening, or maybe even other parents are like, oh, I'd love to get that program going at our school. So first of all, how many are in your graduating class this year? How many seniors are in the program?
We have about 115 in our class.
Okay. And then since it is mandated, is it just a unit in your government class? Is it an after-school program? Like, how do you guys do that?
We do it as an in-class activity for the local competition. And then once we found out we made it to state, that is when it becomes an extracurricular activity. And then obviously last year we made it to nationals, and that's the next level. That is definitely after school, put in way more work than for the local. But yes, it is an in-class project.
Yeah, so when it's in class, it's graded, it's a part of your final grade. So that's another reason why people are kind of forced to try if they don't want to fail the class. And then afterwards, it's totally optional.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to brag on these students since they're in my district. I represent them and their parents or everybody in that community. So good job, and a great bunch of future leaders right there.
If I could add to that, Mr. Chairman, Cody right now is the only town in the state that has, because there's a gentleman named Travis Duncan, who's the Civic Educator of the Year at the 8th grade level. He is doing the sister program to We the People called Project Citizen. He does that with every 8th grader, and then these teachers do it with every high school. There's 3 teachers at the high school that are part of this, and so we actually went up there a couple weeks ago to film all this. The folks from the National Center for Civic Education were so interested, they came out to try to basically do marketing materials because they're like, we want other towns around the country to do civic education like they're doing it in Cody. And so they literally have people from all over the country coming to see what's happening in Cody because they'd like to replicate it in other places.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since you mentioned Mr. Duncan, a couple of weeks ago, Cody Middle School, I went and was grilled by the young people there, the first 4 classes in the morning.
Yes.
And it was quite the eye-opener. It's, you walk out on what little you don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hailing from Sheridan, I'm really glad to see some other faces. Seems like everywhere I go, I get to see those kids, and they're terrific. But I just wanted to tell you about an organization that's out there that I would really encourage you guys to consider, and it's called Toastmasters International. And if you've never had a chance to see what they do, I know they'd love to have you come visit. But if this is something, if public speaking, if being able to think fast on your feet is something that appeals to you, you're going to have a blast with them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm proud of you guys. So obviously, there is a point of congratulations, you're doing this whether you like it or not. But what I do love about it is the fact when I look at you guys, it's very obvious you're passionate about this. So I'm going to give you a challenge, and then I'm going to I'll ask a question at the end. The challenge is this. So all of you guys are seniors, correct?
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
21 years of age. You could be sitting where I'm sitting. 21 years of age, you could walk onto that floor, not as just a citizen, but as a representative. And I think one of the things we see is this kind of a disconnect of going, wow, I learned a lot about government. But then maybe not asking that question, am I supposed to be more of a part of government? Because one of the things you have to understand is if you look around this room, we've got all sorts of different ages represented. And there's things you guys don't know that he does. And you won't know that because he has wisdom that has been found through years. But there's things in society that you understand that he can't. Why? Because of a different generation. And so it's really important that we keep your generation, the next generation, and the generations after you involved in this beautiful and amazing American experiment, right?
Absolutely.
And so my challenge would be this, just ask that simple question. Am I supposed to go beyond just a really cool part of my schooling into maybe what it actually ends up being. And if you look at Nathan Hale and some of these amazing founders of our freedom, they weren't far off of your age. And so I just would challenge you to make that a reality. And then the question part of it would be this. Where are you going to go from here with your education, civics education?
So most of the people you see up here are part of a club called Youth for Justice. So every year, you'll be seeing us in a couple months actually. Every year we come down and we lobby for a couple of pieces of legislation that we believe in. We're one of the most successful youth-led legislative lobbying groups in the state. So yeah, I intend to keep doing that, obviously. I intend to major in political science. And if you're offering an aide position, okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. I also am interested in pursuing a degree in in political science. And just like you guys, thank you for all you do. I know that it's not easy. Like I said, I am on the school board. I obviously don't get to vote or anything like that, but I do sit through the policies and the budget hearings, and it's definitely not easy, or it's kind of a thankless job. So thank you guys very much for all you do. And yeah, I think that it's very important that people continue their things in civic education and take the next step into government and leading their people. So yeah, thank you.
I'm really excited to continue my civic education through in a few months during the budget session. I will be interning here at the legislature, and so I'm going to use that to definitely help me figure out more of what I want to do, because I'm still figuring out exactly what I want to do, but I know it's something in this realm, and I feel like that is a really good way to help get some more hands-on experience. And past that, this next summer, I'm gonna also go lobby at Washington for the Youth Citizens Climate. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that this summer as well.
Unlike my colleagues, I'm not necessarily ready to pursue a career in the legislature, but I am looking into some law careers, maybe even journalism. I'm honestly not sure where I want to go, but I definitely want to still be involved in the political realm for sure.
And I think I would have to kind of associate with Sunday on that. I hadn't really thought about it as a career at all before this, but it definitely gets me interested in kind of thinking about what I could do with this kind of career path. So yeah, we'll see.
And another thing that Cody High School has done really well is just encouraging us all to be involved with our legislature. We've created a culture of civics education, like our facilitator was saying, Mr. Duncan, he was the Civics Educator of the Year. We have Youth for Justice. We have all of these internship opportunities. We have We the People as a graduation requirement. We have really pushed civic education and civic involvement throughout our whole district. So our teachers have really pushed the idea that even if we're not legislators like yourselves, even if we're not directly involved here in Cheyenne, we're all involved, and we can all do our part. We can all write letters no matter where we are and what career path we choose. We are all called to be involved, brush up on our knowledge, brush up on our facts, and hold those in power accountable, and do all the things that you guys do as well.
So before I let you go, I want to give you a couple of minutes, if you want, to ask us any questions. We have a former president of the Senate, Senator Ogden Driscoll here. We have a bunch of very good House members and Senate members, so you don't have to, but if you want to ask any questions of the Joint Appropriations Committee for the State Legislature of Wyoming, please go ahead. Yes, Senator Driscoll.
Thank you. Extremely impressive. It's really fun. Puts a smile on my face, see the positive attitude. You came in here and all of you are trying to do things in a positive way. And that's the best advice that I can give to you is good things happen by promoting good things rather than trying to tear something apart. And it's really fun to see people come in with a smile on their face. Second half is the legislature isn't everything. We need across the state, and I can tell you they're open everywhere, school board members, local youth organizations, local other organizations, all of them. And
I look down here and I look at Senator Grew, Senator French, past county commissioners, people that have done a bunch of volunteer work outside of the legislature tend to be the best informed in the other. Last, you guys said something I absolutely loved because it's called a dirty word around here a lot. You talked about being lobbyists. And doing what you do warms my heart because I hear about this dirty word lobbyist all the time. And the truth is, those are some of the best friends we have. They're people that are our constituents, our neighbors, our friends, not just paid ones, with the experience. And Representative Harrelson talked about your youth and helping us. We live on people like you calling in for all of us. I'm guessing almost every person in this room, our emails are online, or for me, a text is better. I can assure you, we listen firsthand, all of us, to what anything says, and a lot of times you get preference over someone else. There's a reason for that. You know, we want Wyoming to be better, and it's gonna be better not because of me sitting here, because of you and what you folks do come forward. So for John, it's hard. You'll get beat up the further you go. But don't ever give up and realize that it takes very few of you to make a change in the state. And you won't see it happen instantly, but looking back, you're gonna see that you actually changed things that made it a better place. So thanks again.
Salazar, may I respond to that real quick?
Yep, and then
Senator Driscoll, the very first We the People state champion was Hewlett High School. We got to get it back in Hewlett. That would be one of my big, asks of this. If I could ever get any help, we'd love to get back into Hewlett. But de Tocqueville, he said, we're a nation of joiners. One of the things he put in his book was that he noticed that we were a nation of joiners. And I really think that that's what you all are talking about, is that you got to join. You got to jump in. You got to, you can't just live out in your basement on your phone. Like, you've got to come join society. And I really think that that's something great about this program, is it promotes this idea that you got to join in. You got to get in the mix. So.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to bring to your attention that we do, quite a few of us do the Youth for Justice things, and we will be back here in February for our bill. So just be on the lookout for emails. We're trying to get sponsors on all the things we do. So yeah, just keep your emails and everything open and look for things from us. Yeah.
I'll work on that. So we just recently been working on a suicide prevention bill. As you probably know, suicide in Wyoming is one of the highest rate-wise in the whole country. So we recently just got somebody to sponsor that bill. So it's a big thing we've been working on, is suicide prevention. So I would encourage all of you to keep an eye out for that. And we will be here, a couple months to ask any questions about that. So thank you for that.
I guess if I have a question, it would be, how did some of you guys get interested in this sort of thing, and what kind of path did you take to get here?
Thank you for the question. So when I was your age, I actually was a part of a thing called Teen Pact. And from there I became a program director of student projects running campaign teams in the 2004 elections, which none of you guys were even born then. But and I was kind of the end of it, I thought. Maybe I'd go further, but it never really materialized. And then coming out of COVID in 2020, I pastor a church, and we just saw some things happen in COVID that kind of breached some of our constitutional rights. And I started just asking questions. And I'll be the first to admit, COVID was a real thing and real things happened. But I started sitting there going, our First Amendment got trampled, and everyone said, well, the First Amendment is your freedom of speech. Well, no, it's way more than that. It's your freedom to assemble and your freedom of religion and all these different things. And so I just was like, we got to shift and make some changes. And I tried to make that reality by contacting my legislator, and I just kept getting dead ends, and I felt like I wasn't being heard. So the beauty of our system is a kid that hadn't been in the political realm for a long, long time, went and signed up with the Secretary of State, and a year later was standing on the floor of the legislature. So that was the process. And I'll also say this, I did it with little of no money by doing, but it's a really simple process. It was knocking on doors and just having conversations with the people. So,
Senator French and then Representative Pendergrass. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My path was to getting here in the year 2000, which is a long time ago. The Park County was going to build a new jail. And I went to the commissioners' meeting, and there's about, maybe 30 of us there. And they did their presentation, and I stood up and asked some questions. And every one of there was 3 commissioners at the time, and every one of them said, sit down. There's information for the uninformed people like yourself. And I said, well, I ain't gonna sit down, you can't answer the question. And so the next commissioner, same thing. For the very uneducated people like yourself, there's info outside, so sit down. Rude, very rude. And the third commissioner did the same thing. And I said, well, I'm not sitting down. You can't answer the question. And the crowd turned on the commissioners, and they said, yeah, you can't answer his question. How dare you speak to him like that? And I thought to myself, you know, I can do this job. I don't need to be rude like these people are. I'll listen to the public, and I can do this job. So I ran, and meanwhile they dismissed their jail project, right? Because they didn't know what they were doing. So I thought to myself, well, I can do this job as well, or better than they can, and I won't be rude to the public. So I ran and won, and of course they appointed me to build the new jail. And I said, well, I will build the new jail. And so I met every Thursday for 2 years with law enforcement and everybody. And I come to Cheyenne in front of the slip board and asked for money for a new jail. And I got the new jail built. So that's kind of how I started. And then there was, it was so many good things that could be done, I played an integral part in the new library up there. I was the one on top of the hill by the Quad Center or whatever. So there was a lot of things. So I kept running, ran 5 times and was elected 5 times for county commissioner there in Park County. And then I thought, they're probably tired of my mug. So I waited a couple years and ran for the Senate and was elected, and I just got elected to my 2nd term. So that's kind of what my pathway into the government, because I never, ever thought I'd be sitting here, or previously as a county commissioner. I was quite happy on the farm on the north side of Hart Mountain. I was very happy on the South 40, so it's been quite a pathway. So that's kind of how I got here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys for the question. I graduated high school in 1980. Yeah, it was the 1900s. Yeah. Got involved in politics right away. I got involved in a couple of Bighorn County races, helping people running for various positions. By 1984, I was assistant press secretary for Russ Donnelly's campaign for governor. And I learned pretty quickly that I probably didn't want to be the guy on the front row. Politics is not for the thin skin. It's not for the faint of heart. Moses, when he heard from God and God said, I want you to go to Pharaoh, Moses' answer was, who am I that I should go into Pharaoh? And I saw things happen, as Representative Haraldson said earlier during COVID, that just infuriated me. And a number of people around me were very upset as well. And in addition to that, I didn't like the way the government was growing in Wyoming. And I was tempted to do what most people do, which is just sit at home and throw your shoes at the TV when the reports come on, whatever that is. And finally, I just decided I've got to do something about this. And a few years later, just a very few years later, I'm sitting here combing through the budgets of all of the agencies in Wyoming and having a vote. If you're upset or if you're really like the way things are going, you can make a difference. We just heard earlier, one person can make a difference. Don't ever underestimate that, because most people aren't willing to do what it takes. And if you are, go get it.
Thank you so much. Andy, I know you have a tight schedule, but I wanted to at least give them an opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you.
I thank you again for coming here today. We are going to look not only for your emails, but for you in person during the legislative session. And may God direct your path. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, that clears the desk for your sixth day of agency hearings. Tomorrow, there are a number of land and agriculture agencies, such as the Livestock Board, the Department of Agriculture, Office of State Lands and Investments, and the Wildlife Natural Resource Trust Fund that will be before you.
Well, I know my co-chair tomorrow will be eagerly going through that agenda, so yes.
Mr. Chairman, also, there are 4 bills that you will take up at the end of the day. All of those relate to state forestry, 2 of them from a motion by Representative Harrelson at your October 31st meeting, and 2 of them sponsored by Representative Sherwood, looking for committee support.
Okay, with that, I will adjourn until tomorrow morning.